In the 3rd year of my marriage to Julian, he had everyone lie to me while he kept a younger, more delicate girl on the side. Everyone around us said I was the love of his life, his greatest weakness. But when he was drunk, he laughed and said, "Alara." Once I married her, I realized she was nothing special. The man who swore at 17 that he would love me for a lifetime was now holding a young girl, coaxing her. "She's so boring." Of course. "I love you the most, baby." The day I left was like any other. No one noticed anything was wrong. The housekeeper smiled and asked if I was going out for shopping and tea. I smiled back and nodded. No need to prepare dinner tonight. Hearing my love has another. I gather and burn it all. Burn it to ash. And scatter it in the wind. Julian didn't know that the nothing special Alara was unyielding. The word forgiveness had never been in her dictionary. I clutched my coat, a bag of liver support pills in my hand. The hallway was long, and the light cast shifting, colorful patterns on the oil paintings, which then scattered across the floor. At the end of the hall, peals of laughter grew louder and louder. Julian kept this entire floor booked year-round. No unauthorized person could get near it, which was why they didn't even bother to close the door. The heel of my shoe caught on the thick carpet pile. As I bent down, the necklace around my neck suddenly snapped. Pearls, large and small, rolled across the floor. A sharp, inexplicable pain pierced my heart. Just as I was about to squat down and pick them up, I heard Julian's voice. "Come on. I'm not a player like you guys. My first love, the one true love of my life, is and always will be my wife." He must have been drunk. His voice was filled with a smug pride. I couldn't help but purse my lips, holding the cool pearls. My heart felt soothed, as if it had been gently ironed out. "It's just a shame." Julian sighed suddenly. "Once I married her, I realized she was nothing special after all." My hand clenched shut. The pearls dug into my palm, and the smile on my face froze. "Then what about me, Julian?" A sweet, feminine voice suddenly whined, laced with resentment. "You say the love of your life is your wife. So, what does that make me? Just last night, you told me you loved me the most." The men all roared with laughter. "Silly girl. You actually believe what a man says in bed. Besides, it's perfectly normal for a man to love his own wife. What's a little mistress like you fighting for attention for? Julian, look at them." The girl's voice broke into a sob. She sounded so pitiful it could break your heart. "All right, why are you all ganging up on her?" Julian's voice grew heavy, sounding displeased. "What's this? Mistress talk. This is my proper girlfriend. Watch your mouths." "No way. Julian, are you serious about this?" Julian grunted in affirmation. "She's been with me since she was 18. I have to take responsibility." "You animal. You made your move the second she was legal. Aren't you afraid your wife will raise hell?" Julian laughed. "She depends on me for everything. What leverage does she have to fight me? Still, you guys better keep your mouths shut. I love my wife very much, and I don't want to see her hurt." "You love your wife very much. But what about me?" The young girl started clinging to him again. Julian pulled her into his arms and coaxed her. "Is this little thing really worth crying over?" The girl whimpered. "Julian, I want you to say you love me the most, even if you're lying. I'll believe you." "All right, baby." "She's so boring." "Of course. I love you the most." I stood in the shadows outside the door and suddenly smiled. The man who had sworn to love me for a lifetime was now soothing a younger girl. But I found I had no desire to even walk in and confront him. Cheats once, can't be trusted ever. I turned and walked back down that long corridor. At 17, Julian had secretly carved my name into his desk. He said, "Julian loves Alara, and he will for a lifetime." But his lifetime was merely a decade that had passed in the blink of an eye. When Julian came home the next day, I was already having breakfast downstairs. He rushed in, carrying a large bouquet of flowers and a gift. His face was a mask of apology and guilt. "I'm so sorry, honey. The business dinner ran so late last night. I couldn't make it back." When we got married, he had promised that no matter how busy he was, he would never stay out all night. But for the past 6 months, he had been coming home later and later. This time, he didn't come home at all. I put down my chopsticks and looked up at him. His suit, shirt, and tie had all been changed. He smelled clean and fresh. Impressive. How meticulous he was. He set the flowers down and came over to kiss me. Honey, I swear, this is the first and last time. I raised a hand to stop him and asked, word by word, did you stay at the office last night? Julian didn't hesitate for a second. Yes. See, I'm even wearing the clothes you packed for me. He then took my shoulders, looking at me cautiously. Honey, are you angry? I'll spend the whole day with you today. Okay, I won't go to the office. I looked at him, at the reflection of myself in his pupils. His gaze was direct, without a trace of guilt, and I, somehow, was able to hide my heartbreak just as perfectly. No, I said, pushing his hands away. Let's eat first. But as soon as he sat down, his phone rang. I saw him frown and hang up. It immediately rang a second time. He hesitated for a few seconds before hanging up again. Then, a message came through. After reading it, Julian's brow furrowed tightly. Alara, something urgent came up at the office. You should go. Never mind. I'll have Leo handle it first. I promise to spend the day with you. He said this, but his face screamed distraction. Don't worry about it. Work is more important. You should go. I watched him calmly, the pain in my heart turning to numbness. Julian struggled for only a moment before standing up. Then I'll try to be back as early as possible to be with you. I nodded, watching him hurry to his car and drive away. Only then did I belatedly wipe away the cold tears on my face. I called my best friend. Chloe, can you help me book a physical at your hospital for today? When the check-up results came back, I let out a huge sigh of relief. My body was still clean, and I wasn't pregnant. When I married Julian, my health was poor, so we never had children. But just in case, I had a thorough examination. Doctor, I'd like to ask, how is my recovery coming along? After receiving an affirmative answer, I felt the heavy weight in my chest finally lift. Clutching the report, I walked out. As I rounded the corner of the hallway, I happened to hear Julian's name. Julian, if I'm really pregnant, can I please not get an abortion? I stopped and watched the two of them from a distance. Julian had a cigarette between his fingers, his brow knitted in irritation. The young girl, with a bare, tear-stained face, was tugging at his sleeve and begging. Julian sneered. My wife hasn't even had a child. What makes you think it's your turn? But this is my first baby. I can't bear to lose it. I promise I'll be good. I won't cause you any trouble. I'll never let your wife know about me or the baby. Julian patted her cheek with the hand holding the cigarette. Don't be naive, baby. You're not having this child. Be a good girl. Get rid of it. And I'll buy you another apartment. But if you don't, Tanya, I'm warning you right now, he said coldly. There are plenty of pretty, obedient girls at your college. I could sleep with a different one every day. It doesn't have to be you. The girl was terrified by his words. Tears streamed down her pale face. I'll listen. Julian, please don't leave me. Good. Go get your check. Up. I'll go. But, honey, you said before that your wife's health is too poor to have children. If I'm really pregnant, couldn't I have it for her? She can even raise the baby. I won't fight for anything. I promise. Julian was silent for a moment. Get the check. Up first. We'll talk after. The girl sniffled and went into the room. Julian finished his cigarette and stubbed it out. As he turned, I pretended to have just walked up. He seemed to freeze when he saw me, but his expression quickly shifted to one of intense worry. Honey, what are you doing at the hospital? Are you not feeling well? Are you hurt? Julian gripped my arm, looking incredibly anxious. Why didn't you call me? Coming to the hospital all by yourself. He looked me up and down, his eyes filled with urgent concern, as if his love for me hadn't faded one bit in the last 10 years. My hands and feet grew cold, a chill seeping from my very bones. How could Julian act so devoted? He called me, honey, while his mistress was in a nearby room getting a pregnancy test. Yet he could stand before me without a single crack in his facade. It was so convincing that I could hardly tell which Julian was the real one. I'm fine, I said. I was just visiting a friend. He let out a long breath and pulled me into a hug. You scared me to death. Honey, Julian, are you really that worried about me? I looked at him and asked softly. How could I not be? He held me tightly. You were in such poor health when I married you. It took me 3 years of careful nursing to get you better. Honey, Do you have any idea how my soul nearly left my body when I saw you just now? If anything happened to you, how could I go on? I wanted to laugh, but my lips were stiff and trembling, as if I were holding a mouthful of hot oil. I asked him, "So, what are you doing at the hospital?" His arms tightened around me. "Oh, I'm visiting an elder who was admitted." But this was the obstetrics and gynecology department. I didn't expose his lie. On the way home, Julian's phone kept ringing. He finally just turned it off. "Even if the sky falls today, I'm staying home with you." I didn't speak, just watched the city scenery pass by the window. The route took us past our old high school. Familiar scenes that were once sweet memories were now honey-coated blades stabbing at my heart. My vision blurred. In that haze, I thought I saw the old me and the old Julian again. "Alara, please don't be mad." "Okay, please. Just let me explain. Just one sentence." "Fine. One sentence. How about two? Can I have two?" The teenage Julian had pleaded, grinning as he tugged at my sleeve. "Get lost, Julian. Don't cry. Hit me, Alara. Hit me as hard as you can. Just please don't cry." Ding from the phone in my bag shattered the memory, pulling me back to reality. I took it out. The message was from an unknown number. "He says you're no fun in bed, that he can never really let go with you. 3 years of marriage, and you haven't tried a new position. He's sick of it. He doesn't like using condoms with me. He said if I get pregnant, he'll let me keep it. Since you can't conceive anyway, Mrs. Julian, you're so useless. Why are you even holding onto your position?" I suddenly laughed. Julian looked over, curious. "Honey, what's so funny?" I locked the screen and said nonchalantly, "My best friend is chewing me out. I forgot we had afternoon tea plans." Julian seemed to relax. "Are you still going?" "Of course. Otherwise, Chloe will hold it against me for days. You should go to the office and take care of your work." Julian feigned displeasure. "I'm starting to get jealous of Chloe. You always take her side. I really don't want you to go. Wouldn't a day just for us be better?" I turned to look at him, but he was already turning the car around. I smiled and faced forward. "There will be plenty of time in the future. You're right. We have a lifetime. I won't fight with Chloe over you this time." He dropped me off at a private club and then sped away. Half an hour later, Tanya sent me another message. "Did he just ditch you?" "See. He told me he can't resist when I cry. By the way, I'm pregnant. He said I can keep it. He wants a daughter, but I want to give him a son. I've calculated it. This one is definitely a boy. It's just a shame the doctor said we can't have sex during the first trimester. I haven't even worn the new lingerie he bought me. His needs have always been strong, and you can't satisfy him. He must be so frustrated." I didn't reply. I just screenshotted every message she sent and saved them. My hand trembled as I did it. Perhaps Julian had played his part too well over the years, and I had been too naive and trusting. So when this absurd and sordid side of him was revealed, I still couldn't control my emotions. So, all that tenderness in bed that had moved me was also a lie. He had long grown tired of our tepid lovemaking. When I thought his restraint was a form of love, reality slapped me hard in the face. The decreasing frequency of our intimacy wasn't out of love or concern. It was because he couldn't be bothered to even pretend anymore. Before going home, I made a call to my old mentor. "Alara, my dear child, why has it been so long since you've called? Professor, does your research team still need people? I'd like to join. Is your health up to it?" I had wanted to join right after graduation. The professor had been very keen on having me, but my health was too poor back then. The team traveled all over the country and the world, and conditions were often harsh, with frequent camping and rough living. I just had a physical. The doctor said as long as I'm careful, there shouldn't be any major issues. "Is your husband willing?" "Alara, you have to understand. If you join, you'll be away for long periods. And many of our projects are classified, meaning you'll be virtually out of contact with your family. Professor, I've decided to get a divorce. Did he do something to wrong you?" I smiled and nodded, swallowing my tears. "Yes, he cheated. After 10 years together." "Are you really sure?" "Professor, do you remember what you told me when you were getting your divorce? Hearing my love has another. I gather and burn it all. Burn it to ash. And scatter it in the wind." My eyes turned red, and tears streamed down my face. "Professor, I was your student." "Of course. I'm just like you." Good, good. "Alara, Then I'll be waiting for you. Waiting for you to come. This was probably the first time since we married that I had actively asked Julian for money. He laughed happily on the phone. Honey, isn't all my money yours? You can use my card for anything you want. It's not the same, I said, uncharacteristically stubborn. All right. I'll have Leo transfer the money to you now. Julian, I'm not taking your money for free. I have a gift for you. 3 days from now, go to the security office at our old high school. Ask for Mr. Song, the guard. Do you remember him? He'll give it to you. Julian chuckled at that. How could I forget? I transferred there in my senior year. I must have written you hundreds of love letters in the 2 years before that. And he was the one who delivered them all. I smiled too. Yes. So, in 3 days. Don't forget to pick it up. I won't. Honey, I'm already looking forward to it. As soon as the money from Julian arrived, I anonymously donated it to my mentor's research team. I printed out the divorce agreement and all the screenshot messages. I sealed them in an envelope and delivered it personally to the security office at our old high school. The broken pearl necklace and the first ring he ever gave me. I burned them myself in a workshop and threw them away. Along with them, his countless love letters turned to ash. On the last morning, I had breakfast with Julian as usual. I saw him off to work. As usual, Julian was apologetic. I had planned to take you to the hot springs today. I broke my promise again. It's okay. Work is more important. I looked at him, my smile light. You should go. Don't let important business wait. Julian looked at me, his expression a mix of tenderness and guilt. Honey, you're always so considerate. So good. I've been so busy with work these years. I've spent too little time with you. I watched him quietly, my thoughts drifting away. The boy who warmed my cold hands in the winter mist. The man who knelt before his parents for a whole day just to marry me. After 10 years together. He was still young and handsome. It was true that he had loved me. His betrayal was also true. His guilt and pity were true. But his wandering heart, his addiction to thrilling affairs, was also true. I knew I could play deaf and dumb and be Mrs. Julian for the rest of my life. No one could take that position from me. But I didn't want to be his Mrs. Julian anymore. I wanted to be Alara again. Julian suddenly stepped forward and hugged me. Honey, I love you so much. Wait for me to come back. We'll have dinner together tonight. I didn't know how much effort it took to force a smile. How much effort it took to hold back the pointless, redundant questions. Thankfully, his phone started ringing again like a death summons. I pushed him away. You should go. Don't keep them waiting. He turned reluctantly, but his pace quickened as he walked away. I smiled and went upstairs. Just like any other day, I changed my clothes and tended to the flowers in the garden. I had a simple lunch. After a nap, I got up and changed into clothes for going out. I grabbed a handbag containing all my documents and important items. As I went downstairs, the housekeeper smiled and asked, "Are you going out for shopping and tea?" "Ma'am." I nodded and smiled back. "Yes. No need to prepare dinner tonight. He wouldn't be home for dinner tonight, and I would never be back again." The driver dropped me off at my usual club and left. I went downstairs. The car arranged by my mentor was already waiting at the corner of the street. It had a classified license plate that no ordinary person could trace. Clutching my bag, I crossed the street and got in. As the car door closed, my phone rang. The name, Julian, flashed on the screen. I didn't hang up. I knew, with absolute clarity, that this would be my last conversation with him. Honey, I'm so ashamed to even tell you this. Julian's voice was full of frustration and guilt. I have a really important business dinner tonight that I just can't get out of. I can't come home for dinner with you, but I promise, I'll be back early tonight to be with you. Okay? Honey, please don't be mad. I've already sent Leo to pick up the gift I ordered for you. You'll definitely love it when you see it. I gripped my phone, staring out the window at the endless street. Beyond the bustling traffic, there was an empty silence. The image of the boy in the blue and white striped school uniform, the one that had lingered in my heart for 10 years, vanished completely in that instant. I knew for certain that I no longer loved him. Honey, why aren't you saying anything? Are you mad? Julian asked cautiously from the other end. Forget it. I'll cancel. I'm not going. I'll come home for dinner with you tonight. No, it's fine. I looked down at the empty space on my ring finger. You go do your thing. Chloe asked me to have dinner with her tonight. Then I'll try to come back as early as I can. Okay. If it gets too late, just stay at the office. Don't rush back and forth. I'll come back no matter how late it is. I said nothing more. Julian said a few more things and then hurriedly hung up. I put the phone back in my bag and, in the gentle rocking of the car, slowly closed my eyes. Julian stood by the hallway window, a cigarette dangling from his lips. The sky outside was dark. Night had fallen. Alara's health had always been delicate, and she kept a strict schedule. She should be asleep by now. Tanya emerged from the examination room with red eyes. Julian had already stubbed out his cigarette. He glanced at her and asked coldly, "What were the results?" "There's some light bleeding. The doctor recommends bed rest for the rest of the month." "Then don't go to classes. Just rest at home." "Honey, will you stay with me?" Tanya asked pitifully, wrapping her arms around his. Julian frowned and pulled his arm away. "I told you not to call me that. There's no one else here." "Fine. I'll have the driver take you home. Aren't you staying with me? I feel really sick today. I'm afraid I'll start bleeding again." "Didn't the doctor prescribe medication?" "Take it and get some rest." Julian walked directly towards the elevator. "I'm not a doctor. There's no point in me staying." Tanya bit her lip, on the verge of tears again. But she was afraid of annoying Julian, so she forced them back and followed him into the elevator. "Julian." Just before she got in the car, Tanya couldn't help but call out to him again. Julian glanced at his watch, clearly impatient. "Now what? Will you come see me tomorrow?" "Didn't the doctor say no sex this month?" Julian raised an eyebrow. "No point in me coming to see you. I need to spend this month with my wife. You'd better behave yourself." Tanya was both furious and hurt, tears streaming down her face, mindful of her pregnancy. Julian did offer a few words of comfort. "Rest up. I'll come see you when I have time." Tanya watched him get in his car and leave without a backward glance. The tears froze on her face, and her jaw ached from clenching it. She couldn't understand. She was younger, prettier. What part of her was inferior to his sickly wife? Every time she thought about it, she was consumed by hatred. But she couldn't let go of Julian, or of the life he provided, so she could only endure it. Julian's car pulled up to the house. When the housekeeper came out to greet him, he asked as he always did, "Is my wife already asleep?" The housekeeper, taking his coat, looked startled. "Ma'am isn't with you." "Sir." Julian stopped dead in his tracks. "What did you say?" The night was dark, and only the light from the house enveloped him. "Ma'am went out for shopping and tea this afternoon. When the driver was going to pick her up, she said he didn't need to, that she would be having dinner out with you." The housekeeper's voice trembled as she spoke, growing more and more alarmed. "Ma'am said when she left this afternoon that there was no need to prepare dinner tonight." Julian suddenly lunged forward, grabbing the housekeeper by the collar. "What else did she say? Don't leave out a single word. Tell me everything." The housekeeper's face went white with fear. "Nothing, sir. Nothing else. She just said not to prepare dinner." Julian shoved her away. He stormed upstairs, pulling out his phone to call Chloe. "You're looking for Alara. We didn't meet today, but this afternoon. Alara said she had dinner plans with you." Julian's voice was eerily calm, a calm he himself couldn't believe. No one could see that the hand holding his phone was shaking uncontrollably. "Alara did call me, but I had a surgery, so we agreed to reschedule." Julian didn't know how he ended the call. He called Alara's other friends, but they all said they hadn't seen or heard from her that day. Julian stood outside the master bedroom. The door was closed. In that moment, he found he didn't even have the courage to push it open. Alara was so smart. How could he have been so foolish as to think she was completely unaware of his actions? When did she find out? How much did she know? And could he win her forgiveness? Julian's mind reeled back to something that happened years ago. In college, he had gotten a bit close to a junior from a club activity. The girl had a crush on him, and many people could see it. Alara had mentioned it to him twice, but he had dismissed it. He loved Alara so much, he couldn't even see other women. Then, at a club dinner, he had taken a drink for the junior and walked her back to her dorm. Alara hadn't fought with him. She just broke up with him. He was completely stunned, as if his world had collapsed. He couldn't even remember how he survived the next 6 months of their breakup. He could barely recall the immense effort it took to beg her to take him back, to give him one more chance. When he finally pushed the door open, Julian's hand was shaking violently. The room was pitch black. The bed was neat and empty. It was as if her very scent had vanished along with her. Julian rushed in, frantically opening every door. But every room was empty. With trembling hands, he dialed her number. It rang, but no one answered. Julian forced himself to calm down. He lit a cigarette and took a harsh drag before calling his assistant. Leo, I need you to find someone. Start looking right now. Investigate everything. Sir, what am I investigating? He told Leo about the club Alara had been to that day. Find out where she went after leaving the club, where she is now, and who she's been in contact with lately. Leo, check her ID at airports, train stations, bus stations. Don't miss a single place. And track her phone's location. Report back to me the second you have anything. Julian went downstairs and drove straight to the airport. There weren't many places she could go. Besides her small hometown a few hundred miles away, there was the city where her other best friend from college had married. Julian tried to calm himself. He told himself he had been discreet. He had warned his friends, and none of them would dare say anything to her. Tanya wouldn't dare either. So, maybe she had just overheard some rumors. Maybe it was because he had been coming home late so often, spending less time with her, and had broken a few promises. Maybe she was just upset and wanted to teach him a lesson. This wasn't like before. They were married. All their interests were intertwined. Her health was poor, and she had been recuperating at home. If she left him, she would be like a bird released from a golden cage, unable to survive for long. Julian tried to console himself with these thoughts, but it was no use. His heart pounded in his chest the entire way, a boiling turmoil that felt like being roasted over a fire. At a red light, he called her again. Still no answer. Just as he was nearing the airport, Leo called. Ma'am left the club around 4 p.m., but the security footage for the entire street has been wiped. We can't track her movements. We've also checked the airports and train stations. There's no record of her traveling. Sir, perhaps ma'am is still in the city. Julian gripped the steering wheel, letting out a sudden breath of relief. Find her, no matter what it takes. Find her. And have you located her phone? We can't. Sir, it seems her phone's location is being intentionally blocked or interfered with. Julian's mind exploded into a blank void. He couldn't hear what else Leo was saying. He only remembered what she had said when she asked for money. About a gift waiting for him at their old high school. 3 days. Tomorrow. But he couldn't wait another second. He sped to the school, arriving well after midnight. The lights in the security office were long extinguished. He didn't care. He got out of the car and pounded on the door. Suddenly, a cold sensation touched the tip of his nose. Julian instinctively reached up and felt a cool snowflake. It was the first snow in the city. He and Alara had confessed their love for each other during a first snow just like this one. Julian stood there, dazed, in the thickening snowfall, lost in thought for a long time. It wasn't until Mr. Song, the guard, called his name several times that he snapped back to reality. He was handed a simple brown paper envelope. The moment he took it, it felt like a searing hot coal, and he instinctively wanted to throw it away. Perhaps he already knew what was inside. Perhaps he just couldn't bear to face it. But in the end, he opened it. The first thing he saw were the words, "Divorce agreement." On the last page was her handwritten signature and fingerprint. Below that were printouts of chat logs. Other than that, she had left him not a single word. And yet, it felt as if everything that needed to be said and done had been made perfectly clear. Julian glanced at the chat logs once before crumpling the paper in his fist. He handed Mr. Song a cigarette, apologized, and thanked him profusely. Then he got in his car and drove straight to Tanya's apartment. When she opened the door, Tanya was sleepy but overjoyed, lunging to hug him. Instead, she was met with a slap that stunned her. Julian didn't speak. He just stared at her coldly and delivered several more slaps. Tanya's face swelled, and her lip split open. Bleeding, she stumbled and fell to the floor, clutching her stomach and crying for mercy. Julian loomed over her, his gaze cold and indifferent. Then, without a shred of pity, he kicked her in the lower abdomen. Tanya screamed, nearly passing out from the pain. and writhed on the floor. Blood gushed from between her legs, staining a large patch of the white carpet red. But it still wasn't enough for him. He bent down, grabbed her by the collar, and practically lifted her off the ground. "What do you think you are?" He squeezed her swollen face, her jaw nearly dislocating. His handsome face was twisted into a grotesque snarl, but his voice was chillingly calm. "A common whore who dares to cause trouble for my wife. I told you that you could have the baby because I didn't want my wife to suffer. Did you think being pregnant made you special? Tanya, who gave you the nerve to harass my wife and make her angry?" Tanya's vision went black. A twisting pain, like a knife, ripped through her stomach. She was terrified, filled with a regret so deep it was killing her. Why had she been so greedy? Why had she coveted the position of Mrs. Julian? If she had just quietly had the baby, she would have had wealth and comfort for the rest of her life. "I won't do it again, Julian. I really won't," she begged. "Please, save the baby. The baby's not going to make it." Too late. Julian shoved her away with disgust. "Tanya, you had better pray to God that my wife forgives me and comes home. Otherwise, your life is well and truly over. Julian, this is your child." 2. Tanya spasmed in pain, lying helplessly on the floor, struggling. Her bloody hand reached out for him, but he stepped back, watching coldly as she writhed until she passed out. Only then did he make a call. "Send someone to the hospital. Just make sure she doesn't die." Without another glance at Tanya, Julian turned and left. Downstairs, a thin layer of white already covered the ground. Julian was only wearing a shirt and trousers, but he felt no cold. He dialed Alara's number again. Still no answer. Julian looked down at the wedding ring on his finger and suddenly remembered that Alara hadn't been wearing hers for several days. So, at the hospital that day, she had seen everything, heard everything, but at the time, she hadn't questioned him. She hadn't even shed a single tear. How disappointed must she have been in him? Julian didn't dare to think about it. Didn't dare to imagine what Alara had been feeling. Just as he couldn't find the words to describe what he was feeling now. "I followed my mentor to a small town in the northwest, 1,000 miles away. The conditions were basic, the schedule tight. My mentor was constantly worried my body wouldn't be able to handle it. But after getting through the initial discomfort, I gradually adapted to the fast-paced life and work. I got a new phone and number, but I kept the old phone on. The number's still active, just left at my lodging instead of carried with me." The old phone received calls and texts from Julian almost daily, but I never answered or read them. After arriving in the Northwest, I called Chloe and briefly explained what had happened with Julian. Chloe spent a full 10 minutes on the phone cursing Julian out. "No wonder you just disappeared without a word. Alara, Julian has been looking for you like a madman. He even cornered me at the hospital several times. But I genuinely don't know where you are. So it was useless. And it seems he's asked every single one of our friends who you were close to." I told Chloe, "If he looks for you again, just say you don't know anything." "I know. Don't worry. I won't let him bother you. But, Alara, are you ever coming back?" "Of course. I have to go back to finalize the divorce with him." "What if he refuses to divorce you?" I laughed. "It doesn't matter. I'll be traveling all over the world. He'll never find me. We can just let it drag on." The Julian family won't stand for that. He's their only son, with an empire to inherit. After the call, a few of my junior colleagues came to get me for dinner. It was lamb hot pot again, the aroma filling the air. Back in the city, my diet was always strict due to my health. Red meats like beef and lamb were to be eaten sparingly. But here, following the local customs, I seemed to be getting healthier. Even my mentor teased me. "You've got some color in your cheeks these past few days. Not like when you first arrived. All pale. Isn't it because I'm happy being with you, Professor?" Eating well and sleeping well. I held my bowl and leaned on her shoulder. "Acting cute. You're a grown woman. Can you act a little more proper in front of your juniors?" she said with mock disdain. But then she placed a large piece of meat in my bowl. "Eat up while it's hot. Eat more." I bowed my head and took a big bite of the meat. But my nose suddenly stung. Not wanting my mentor to see me cry, I ate everything in my bowl, swallowing the food along with my tears. That night when I got back, the old phone was vibrating non-stop. Julian, for whatever reason, was calling incessantly. After it finally quieted down, I sent him my first and last text message. Sign the divorce papers. I will return to the city to finalize the proceedings with you. Do not contact me about anything else, or this number will be permanently disconnected. The moment I sent it, Julian called again. I didn't answer. He didn't call a second time. A long while later, he replied with a single word. Okay. After sending the message, Julian collapsed onto the sofa, covering his face as he let out a silent, bitter laugh. His friends sat around him, exchanging glances, but no one dared to say anything. He had been searching for Alara like a man possessed, though he hadn't made it public. Rumors had started to spread through their circle. His little mistress, Tanya, had had it rough. She was sent to the hospital too late, and they couldn't save her uterus. But Julian still wouldn't let her off. She had recently been expelled from her college, and her parents, ashamed of her, had cut ties. Now she was living a precarious existence, praying day and night for Alara to come back so Julian might show her some mercy. But Alara had vanished as if she'd evaporated into thin air. There was no news. Julian, was that a message from your wife? Someone finally dared to ask. Julian leaned back on the sofa, eyes closed, silent for a long time. Just as everyone thought he wouldn't answer, he suddenly spoke. She really doesn't want me anymore. The atmosphere froze. No way. You two have been together for so many years. Once she cools down, you just have to apologize properly. She has a soft heart. She'll forgive you. Julian just shook his head. You don't know her. Just as he said that, the door was suddenly kicked open from the outside, slamming against the wall with a loud crash. Everyone jumped and turned to look. Julian slowly sat up. He squinted, and upon seeing the visitor, a mocking smile touched his lips. So it's you, Ethan. Ethan didn't answer, nor did he look at anyone else in the room. He walked straight up to Julian. He kicked over the coffee table, then reached out and grabbed Julian by the collar. No one expected a man who looked so lean to have such strength. The half-drunk Julian was yanked to his feet and slammed against the wall. What? You want to fight? Julian's smile was sarcastic and vicious. Before he could finish, Ethan's fist smashed into his face. Julian, I told you 5 years ago. Ethan snarled. If you didn't treat her right, I wouldn't let you get away with it. Julian turned his head, scarlet blood pouring from his nose. He wiped it away nonchalantly and threw a heavy punch back. The room descended into chaos. Bottles shattered, chairs and tables overturned. Drunk and disoriented, Julian was quickly overpowered, kicked to the ground by Ethan. Both men were bruised and bloodied. Julian's face was a wreck. A deep, bloody gash on the back of Ethan's hand dripped steadily onto the floor. Who the hell do you think you are? My business with my wife is none of your damn business. Julian sneered, propping himself up against the sofa. What? You heard we were fighting and couldn't wait to come poach her. Too bad for you. Ethan, Alara chose me over you 5 years ago, and she'll do it again. Ethan slowly clenched his bleeding hand. The gash on his knuckles split wider. A gruesome sight, but he felt no pain. There was just a thorn in his heart, digging deeper and deeper, tormenting him day and night. A piece of friendly advice, brother to brother. Stop coveting another man's wife. Julian's smile was wicked. We've been married for 3 years. We've slept together more times than you can count. He deliberately stared at Ethan's face, savoring every flicker of pain, feeding on the thrill of it. All his reason was gone. He just wanted Ethan to suffer, to break. Her first love, first kiss, first night. They were all mine. What do you have to compete with? Ethan, everyone knows how much Alara loves me. And it's because she loves me that she can't tolerate a single grain of sand in her eye. The more she fights with me, the more it proves she cares. So, what's the point of you coming all this way? You think you can just swoop in and win her over? Dream on. Ethan, Alara has never had eyes for you. She will never love you. Julian used the sofa to struggle to his feet. As pathetic as he looked, standing before Ethan, his past rival, he still had to be superior. I am not divorcing my wife. Give up. In this lifetime, you will never have a chance. Julian. Ethan looked at him, his eyes like frosted glass, utterly cold and resolute. If I had seen what kind of scumbag you were 5 years ago, I would have fought to take her from you, even if it meant she would hate me for it. With what? How could you possibly take her from me? Or are you just a creep who likes other people's leftovers? Ethan's bloody fist shot out, slamming into Julian's jaw. He stared at Julian, his eyes bloodshot. I'll be waiting to see you get what you deserve. Julian had never really believed in things like karma. But when he finally traveled thousands of miles to that small, sand-swept town, only to watch as Ethan found Alara in the desert first, he suddenly understood. His retribution had arrived. It was swift and caught him completely off guard. He had no defense, no way to fight back. Sand swirled, blotting out the sun. He didn't know if Alara had seen him. He could only watch as Ethan carefully helped the injured Alara into a desert SUV. She was so weak that Ethan had to lift her into the vehicle. He still followed the car to the hospital. Her mentor intercepted him but allowed Ethan to go with Alara to her examination. The wind died down, and the swirling sand settled. He spat a mouthful of sand and lit a cigarette. One after another. He couldn't stop. He frantically asked her mentor, "Has she been here with you this whole time?" "Yes. She's a hard worker. Very resilient. Her health is poor." Julian forced down the bitterness in his throat. "Has it been very difficult for her?" The mentor tilted her chin, looking at him coolly. "No. She has been happy." Julian's eyes were terrifyingly red, perhaps from the wind and sand. "Professor, do I still have a chance? Will she forgive me? I truly regret it. I know I was wrong." He was like a helpless, lost child, a man so tall and proud, now clinging to the professor's sleeve, on the verge of tears. "I don't know, but I respect all of Alara's choices. Professor, please help me, won't you?" But the professor shook her head and pushed his hand away. "Alara is my most brilliant student. I know her well, and her temperament is much like my own. In this matter, no one can help you." "But Professor, we were together for 10 years. So what?" The professor's smile was distant and contemptuous. "My ex-husband and I were married for 15 years. He even got on his knees and begged me, crying. But a tainted man is tainted. He's no different from trash. Julian, we women are not a garbage disposal. If you truly cherish your 10 years together, then set her free." The day the divorce was finalized, Julian called out to me as I was leaving the civil affairs office. "Honey." He looked dazed, all the life gone from him. His eyes, once so passionate and reckless, were now dull and lifeless. "Call me by my name, Alara." Julian walked up to me and stopped. He looked at me earnestly, a flicker of light returning to his dim eyes. "We can still be friends, can't we? Like 10 years ago. We can start as friends." I shook my head. "No." "But Alara." I cut him off resolutely. "Julian, I told you 5 years ago. The word forgiveness is not in my dictionary. I compromised back then. I took a step back, and 5 years later, I got what I deserved for it. Then let's not be friends. Let's start as strangers. Okay? Just give me one more chance. Just this once. I swear." "Julian, do you still not know me? The nothing special Alara you saw is, in fact, unyielding." Julian's head snapped up. "You heard everything that night." I nodded faintly. "Yes. I heard it all." The last flicker of light in his eyes shattered like cracked ice. "But Alara, you took the pearl necklace you loved so much, and our wedding rings. You still can't let go of what we had." He was like a drowning man, desperately grasping for the last piece of straw. But I shattered his final illusion. I burned them all in a workshop. "Julian, you can go look for your so-called old feelings in the sewer." I said no more and turned to leave. But Julian quickly caught up. "You're going to be with Ethan, aren't you? But all men are the same. Alara, he only wants you because he couldn't have you. Once he gets you, he'll make the same mistakes I did. So what?" I looked at him, my eyes calm. "After going through a terrible ex like you, what do I have left to lose? Are you going to marry him?" "I'll think carefully about marriage. But I'm still young. A career I love and a man I love are things that can coexist." "You love him?" I smiled at him. "Does it have anything to do with you?" As I waited at the crosswalk, I saw a car parked by the side of the road. In the early spring weather, Ethan stood leaning against the car, dressed in a black windbreaker. Yellow, green buds were sprouting on the bare branches, but the wind still carried a chill. He stood there quietly, glancing every so often in my direction. The moment he saw me, he stood up straight, The sun broke through the clouds, casting a soft, bright halo in his eyes. Alara. He strode towards me as the light turned green, as the frozen crowd began to flow, turning into dancing notes on the crosswalk. But I stood still, a smile on my lips, my head tilted slightly as I watched him walk towards me with long strides, like a scene from a timeless film. Alara. He finally reached me and looked down at me. He seemed nervous, his breathing uneven. The wind must have been cold, because his ears were slightly red. I looked up at him, vaguely remembering a rebellious boy from many years ago. It turned out that the countless chance encounters on the way to and from school weren't just chance. The countless times our eyes met as we passed were not just coincidence. I couldn't imagine what Ethan, as an observer, must have felt back when I was so devotedly in love with Julian, when I rejected him and chose Julian. What hidden pain was in his last glance, his final smile. But love has never followed reason. The young Ethan and Julian were completely different types, and the sensitive, melancholic me back then preferred Julian, the one who knew how to make a girl happy. It all seemed to make sense. I don't regret the past. I've just decided to look forward. Have you been waiting long? I asked with a smile. Not long. Just in time. The hand hanging by his side slowly lifted, as if he wanted to take my hand. But then he hesitated. Ethan. I said his name and gently stomped my foot. The spring wind in the city is so cold. Are you cold? Yes. So cold. My hands are frozen. I held out my hand for him to see. My fingertips were a little red from the cold. Ethan didn't say anything. He just gently took my hand. He rubbed my cold fingers until the warmth returned, then naturally tucked my hand into the pocket of his large coat. The light turned green again. The crowd began to move. Ethan took my hand, and we blended into the flow. Spring had arrived, and the air was thick with it. It was the perfect season for falling in love. Julian. Alara married Ethan after all. Many of our old classmates, friends, and teachers went to the wedding. Even more than had attended his own wedding to her. The wedding wasn't as grand or high profile as his had been, but it was incredibly warm and happy. Julian watched the entire wedding unfold on a friend's social media feed. Everyone around him told him to move on, to stop looking. The couple was inseparable, deeply in love. Why was he torturing himself? But Julian couldn't control it. He was like a thief hiding in the shadows, spying, not knowing if he was looking for a crack in their happiness or just sprinkling salt on his own wounds to torture himself. He couldn't sleep that whole night. He endlessly scrolled through every photo, every video. Alara was still so beautiful. The years of hard work, of traveling and roughing it, hadn't worn her down. In fact, she looked more vibrant, healthier than she ever did as Mrs. Julian. He heard that Ethan and she had spent much of the past few years apart, sometimes out of contact for months at a time. Julian had secretly hoped. Ethan was a man, and as a man, he knew their inherent weaknesses. He didn't believe Ethan could truly remain faithful, that he wouldn't have any complaints. He even had someone secretly watch Ethan, hoping to catch him slipping up so he could run and tell Alara. But years passed, and Ethan remained as devoted as ever, never taking a single misstep. Ethan had proposed several times, but Alara had always refused. Julian was secretly overjoyed when he heard this, but his happiness was short-lived. Although Alara hadn't agreed to marry him, she stayed at Ethan's house every time she returned to the city. At first, he looked forward to her returns, because he could catch a glimpse of her from afar, to ease his longing. But later, he came to dread her returns, because his dreams were filled with images of Alara and Ethan in bed together. Julian thought he would never be able to forget it, not even in death. When Alara first moved in with Ethan, they didn't leave the house for 3 days. 3 days later, they went to the supermarket together. Ethan's face was glowing with happiness, and Alara looked like a newly blossomed flower, dewy and fresh. He sat in his car and watched, torturing himself. In that moment, he felt like he could die. In the second year of Alara's marriage to Ethan, she became pregnant. That was the same year that, after a night of drinking, he was brutally retaliated against by Tanya. The past few years had been a living hell for her, and she had finally unleashed all her fury on him. She had initially feared him and endured everything. But later, she must have had a mental breakdown and decided to take him down with her. He didn't die, but by a cruel twist of fate. As Alara's belly grew day by day, his doctor delivered his death sentence. He would be confined to a wheelchair for the rest of his life, and he had completely lost the ability to have children. Julian thought that bastard Ethan's words had been a chillingly accurate prophecy. He had betrayed the wife he loved most. He had personally kicked away the only child he would ever have. And now, he had lost his greatest love forever, and he could never have another child. He was truly getting what he deserved. And for the rest of his hopeless, long life, he would have to live in the prison of his own making, with no hope of redemption.